Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Hi, I'm Dr. Dayang from CenPRIS. So for today's session, we'll continue to our next class, which is entitled of Research Problem for POL 500 Research Methodology. The most frequent deficiency noted by evaluator is the lack of a clear problem statement to define and guide the inquiry. So the issue of how to write a problem statement becomes important day to day to all the researchers either doing postgraduate research, either doing PhD or Masters of Research. So what is a research problem actually? Generally speaking, a research problem is a situation that needs a solution and for which there are possible solutions. Bear in mind that research problem that you write in your chapter 1 for problem statement section must be solvable. So that's why you have a research question which have to be answered. And if a situation has no possible solutions, then it makes little or no sense expending resources searching it. For example, a research on how people can live forever makes little or no sense at all. So a research problem may be described as an incongruence, meaning a discrepancy between what is and what ought to be. Also described as the gap in knowledge that needs to be filled. Okay, gap here has been described or has been discussed by Dr. Goh in her last class. So you can refer to her slides, okay, on the gap in knowledge, gap in research that you have to know. Okay, in other words, a research problem is a question that researcher wants to answer or a problem that the researcher wants to solve. Identification and formulation of research problem is the first step of the research process. So that's why you need to read or review the past literature, not just to review what have been done and what not have yet been done, but also you can formulate your own research problem based on your readings. So selection of research problem depends on several factors such as researcher's knowledge, skills, interests, expertise, motivation, and creativity with respect to the subject of inquiry. And it is believed that most of the good research studies need loads of time for selection of research problem. Okay, and then you can modify your research problem by time to time, along or throughout your research journey. Identification of research problem is the first and most important step in research process. Okay. Generally, a broad area is selected first, and then a broad topic is delimited or narrowed down to a specific one-sentence statement of the problem. And this one-sentence statement of the problem, you need to elaborate more and explain it in a paragraph. So this step of the research process is considered as the most difficult and challenging. It needs lots of time. Why is challenging? Because sometimes every year the issue is updated. Sometimes in a year, okay, in a week. So your research also must be updated according to the time. So a research problem, where the source that you can formulate a research problem come from several resources. Okay, as you can see in the slides here. Okay, almost 11 sources of research problem that you can identify or you can find. Okay, for example, the personal experiences. Okay, a day-to-day personal experience of a research may serve as good source of ideas to formulate a research problem. For example, a researcher observed domestic violence suffered by wives of alcoholic husbands. Okay, so from this experience may provide ideas to the researcher to identify several research problems related to domestic violence against women. So there may be so many such life experiences of a researcher which could be need to develop a research problem. Okay, some of you come from industry, okay, and then some of you maybe from academics, okay, from the universities, from companies, and then you have a lot of your own personal experiences, okay, and with your research background you can use it as your interest of study, and then it is a good source of ideas to formulate a research problem. Okay, next is the critical appraisal of literature. So when researchers critically study books and articles relating to the subject of your interest, including research report, opinion articles, and summaries of clinical issues, okay, any social issues, pertinent questions may arise, okay, in our mind. Whatever you read, okay, sometimes we read the journal, why is not cover this kind of study? Why this is limited to this? Why there is no further study? So that will bring, or that will give you an idea for the next or for your study as well. So this may strike readers' mind indirectly by stimulating imagination and directly by stating what additional research is needed. You can get also from the journals at the last part, which is the conclusion part. Okay, usually author will state out the limitation or the recommendation for the further research needs for the study. Okay, so this information may serve as a basis to formulate a research problem. Okay, from previous experience of or previous research, a body of knowledge should be developed on a sound foundation of research findings. Usually at the end of research, further research problems are suggested based on the shortcomings of previous research, which can be investigated. Okay, as I mentioned before, the recommendation or the limited by done by previous study, you can use it as a source of your research problem. Okay, for the existing theories, research is a process of theory development and theory testing. So most of us, okay, uses theories, okay, in our practices. Such in economics, we have a lot of theories, we have a lot of assumptions. Okay, those theories and assumptions can be one of source of our research problem as well. Okay, if an existing theory is used in developing a researchable problem, a specific statement from the theory must be isolated. So generally, parts of the theory are subjected to testing in certain situation. So we have to mention, okay, in our problem statement, if we want to add it up into the existing theories, which part of theories that we want to, okay, why, what the reason behind it. Okay, so the next sources is the social issues, which is sometimes topics are suggested by more global contemporary social or political issues, okay, which is relevance to community, society, nations, and so on. Okay, for example, we have like AIDS, okay, sexual harassment, domestic violence, okay, gender equality, and in research, there are some of the current social and political issues, okay, of concern of our concern as well. Okay, from brainstorming, these brainstorming sessions are good techniques, okay, to find new questions, to have some new ideas, where an intensified discussion among interested people of the profession is conducted to find more ideas to formulate a good research problem. Okay, even though your research journey, we can say that lonely journey, but still you have your friends around you, your colleagues, okay, your supervisors. You need to talk to them, okay, not just to help you in your writing, but to help you in to progress well, okay, and then to refine all your works. For example, okay, ideas for studies may emerge from reviewing research priorities, Okay, by having brainstorming session with researchers, other researchers, maybe from other faculties, okay, your supervisors, your own supervisors, okay, and then your friends, okay, maybe your family members, okay, your colleagues and industry, and so on. Okay, for intuition, traditionally institutions are considered good sources of knowledge as well as sources to find new research problems. So it is believed that reflective mind is good sources of ideas which may be used to formulate a good research problem. Okay, is in institutions, educational institution itself. Okay, we have provide the workshop. Okay, some kind of brainstorming sessions to help students, okay, to have giving or taking the ideas from others, so that will help also in formulating a research problem. Okay, those who doing the field work or going for to collect the to meet the respondents to answer your questionnaire. Okay, exposure to field situations is another sources of research problem. Okay, where researchers can get variety of experiences, which may provide plenty of ideas to formulate research problems. Sometimes, when we go by our own to the field, we can see by our own eyes. Okay, we can look, and therefore we can create, or we can get some ideas, or we can add up any problems that can be, okay, our research problem in your research study. Also, with the consultation with experts are believed to have sound experience of their respective field, okay, which may suggest a significant problem to be studied. Okay, it's not only those who are around you, but you can find other experts from outside. Okay, maybe your colleagues from industries, okay, maybe some experts who is well known as in your research area as well. Okay, you can keep in touch with them to keep you updated, and then to enhance your own knowledge or expertise in your research areas. And also, in addition, expert may help in finding a current problem of discipline to be solved, because your research problem or your problem statement or your research itself must be current problem, which may serve as basis for formulation of research problem. So what is a problem statement? A problem statement is the description of an issue currently existing which needs to be addressed or need to be answered as well. It need to be solved. Okay, there is a problem and needs to be solved. It provides the context of the research study and generates the questions which the research aims to answer. So the statement of the problem is the focal point of any research, and it is the core element of chapter 1, okay, where the examiner or evaluator or your assessor for your proposal defense or during your research progress presentations, they will look at your problem statement first to have a clear picture of your whole thesis. So a good problem statement is just one sentence actually, but with several paragraphs of elaboration. Okay, you need to elaborate, you need to explain more with supported by previous findings. Okay, so problem statement also serves as the starting point of the research, okay, and is a unifying trait that runs throughout all the elements of the research endeavor. So meaning that we can just look at the problem statement, we know that it is a summary for all the chapters that you have done in your thesis. So as a metaphor, a problem statement is like a DNA, okay, a snapshot, the foundation of the research, the heart of the research, a taste and a blueprint for the study. So it's really important your problem statement is clearly identified and clearly written. Okay, so for example here, in the slides, it gives you the problem statement, which is one sentence problem statement. Okay, which is the frequency of job layoffs is creating fear, anxiety, and a loss of productivity in middle management workers. So this is the one of the example of the research problem in one of the research study. Okay, while this problem statement is just one sentences, it should be accompanied by a few paragraphs that elaborate on the problem. Okay, few paragraph which is could cover present persuasive arguments that make the problem important enough to study. It's not your argument, but the argument that have been found in previous literature that you have read. Okay, meaning you have to cite it and you have to quote it, all the arguments, all the facts that given. Okay, so they could include the opinion of others as well, the politicians, okay, futurists or other professionals, expertise. Okay, and then how this issue or problem relates to the business, social or political trends, okay, via presentation of data that demonstrate the scope and depth of the problem. For those who doing quantitative, they plays with the statistics, numbers. So it should be put also in the to elaborate, okay, your problem statement, okay, to strengthen your problem statement, and then so people who read it know that the problem is important enough to be studied. Again, you need to clearly identify the problem or knowledge gap that your research is responding to. Okay, so in your problem statement, it's not just like it's not just you write the problem statement then you elaborate. Okay, however, you need to mention the knowledge gap as well, the gap that you got from your reading of previous journals, okay, previous literature. So you have to mention what the gap you found from previous literature that you want to fill in. Okay, so this problem statement section should answer the question, what is the research gap that needs to be filled and what is the problem that needs to be solved. Meaning you have two things you have to consider in writing your problem statement. Okay, first one is research gap, and then the research question that you want to answer. Also limit the variables you address in stating your problem or question. The key components of the problem statement often have three elements. Okay, the first one is the problem itself, which is stated clearly and with enough contextual detail to establish why it is important. Again, it must be stated clearly, okay, with enough explanation and elaboration why you have to study or why that problem have to be solved out. Okay, so the method of solving the problem often stated as a claim or a working thesis. So the purpose, statement of objective, and scope of the project being proposed. So these elements should be brief so that the reader does not get lost. Okay, these problem statements like it's like you summarize all the chapters in the next chapters. Okay, maybe chapter 1 your introduction. Okay, chapter 2 is your literature review. Chapter 3, 4, 5 is your chapters to answer the research question given. So your problem statement is usually that you can summarize, okay, all the chapters, what you are going to do, and then what the variables involved, who is the which population group that you use, and in which location. So that will give a clear picture to the evaluator or the assessor before they go in depth to the certain chapters. Okay, the criteria for research problem statements. The statement should clearly indicate, again, please make sure that your problem statements is clearly indicate what is to be investigated. Okay, the actual statement may be in a declarative. Okay, for example here, which is an exploratory study on the contributing factors of maternal mortality in selected rural communities of District Mehsana, Gujarat. Or you can have it in question form. What is the effect of ginger on morning sickness on pregnant women in selected urban communities? Okay, it depending on your research problem as well. You can use what, how, why. It's the most significant questions that usually used in creating a research question from research problem statements. Okay, so the statement should indicate the variables of interest and the specific relationship between the variables that are to be studied. So the role of problem statement. The problem provides the context for the research study and typically generates questions which the research hopes to answer. Okay, so in considering whether or not to move forward with a research project, you will generally spend some time considering the problem. So in your proposal, the statement of the problem is oftentimes the first part to be read with scrutiny. Okay, make sure it's clearly articulated. Okay, and it clearly defines all the chapters in your thesis. Okay, before that, we ignoring the title and the abstract because ideally a title should be born out of a problem statement and an abstract should be summary after the problem has already been dealt with. So the problem statement should therefore hook the reader and establish a persuasive context from what follows. So do not worry too much about your title and your abstract. These two can be done once your thesis has been completed. Or else you still can change the title during the viva. Okay, the examiners will be asked either the title can be remained or changed, the words and so on. So do not waste your time in creating your title and abstract actually. At the same time, this problem statement limits scope by focusing on some variables and not others. It also provides an opportunity for you to demonstrate why these variables are important. So where does a problem statement originate from? A good problem originates from a research question formulated out of observation of the reality. A literature review and a study of previous experiments and research are good sources of research questions that are converted to statements of problem. Either you start research question first while you're reading a literature review, or else you can start your statements of problem, then you create the research questions. Basically, it's come in one section. And usually students will write the statements of problem and then the section will be end up by the research questions. So many scientific researchers look at an area where a previous researcher generated some interesting results but never followed up. So this one you can check or you can get it from the last part of the journal, which is the conclusion part. Usually author will state out the limitation of their study and then the recommendation for further research. So from there you can create or you can have an idea for your next research as your problem statement. So it could be an interesting area of research which nobody else has fully explored, but you have to make sure that maybe there are limitation of studies, so your study will add up in terms of what. So the research question is formulated and then restated in the form of a statement that notes the adverse consequences of the problem. Okay, however, the type of study determines the kinds of question you should formulate. Okay, it depends on your type of study. Okay, so for example, you can try to pose these questions to draft your problem statement out. Okay, the first question is what should be occurring. For example, based on the national average, small-scale farmers in Bungoma district should be harvesting XY tons of maize per acre. So, in second question, what is actually occurring now? Okay, for example, a recent household survey reported that 56 of these farmers harvest only total of XY minus AB tons per acre. Meaning what is occurring now is there are lack in harvesting of tons of maize per acre. Okay, so next questions, what could happen if the problem is not addressed? So, as persistent low farm productivity in the district may lead to widespread food insecurity and defeat the government policy on the same. So, problem here, okay, mention that persistent low farm productivity and also defeat the government policy on the same. So, in this example, meaning you have two problems, okay, that you want to answer. So, you can use this kind of questions, these three questions, to draft out your problem statement at the first stage while reading or while reviewing the past literature. But what is not a problem statement? Okay, it is not a thesis statement, meaning indicating writer's main position or argument in the argumentative paper. Okay, it's not for you to give your own opinion, but this problem statement is based on what we have found or what you have read in previous literature, and it must be supported by the supported by previous findings who meaning that you have to properly cited or properly quoted all the statements given in problem statement. Okay, so it is not the background of study actually, okay, and then also it is not significant of the study as well. So it is not a description of issues without identification of research gap. Okay, whatever research you do, whatever writing in journal you have done, it must have this what we call as a research gap. So we knew that your paper or your work contribute to the existing knowledge theory, or you revise or you extend, or else you do your own, or you have an added value to current knowledge or current theories. Okay, for example here, usually we start with from the general, okay, until specific. For example, we start with the topic, with the broad topic. For example, here is the distance learning. Okay, from general, then we move to the research problem. From this distance learning, you can try to search in Google Scholar. So there's a lot of journals of distance learning. Okay, then from your reading, your research problem is actually the lack of students in distance classes. Okay, this is once you narrow it down. So your specific problem is the lack of students in distance classes. So what is your objective actually? So from your topic, then your research problem, you can identify the objective, which is to study why students do not attend distance education classes at the community college. You can see from the broad topic, you try to make it more specific. Okay, from distance learning, then you go for the lack of students in distance classes, then you narrow it down for students who do not attend distance education, especially at the community college. Okay, so your research question would be, does the use of website technology in the classroom deter students from enrolling in a distance education class? Okay, from the broad topic, you manage to narrow it down until you get your research problem. Then you can create your own research question that need to be answered. So that's why you need to review past literature from your broad topic. So from there you can see the gaps, and those gaps you can fill it, okay, within your research area. So what to consider in selecting a research problem? Okay, there are 7 here. Basically there are more. However, I just list 7. Okay, so the first one is the manageable or interest. Basically, it fits the level of researcher's level of research skills, needed resources, and time restrictions. So this interest should be the most important consideration in selecting a research problem. Okay, a research endeavor is usually time consuming, okay, and involve hard work and possibly unforeseen problems. Okay, so if you select a topic which does not greatly interest you, it could become extremely difficult to sustain the required motivation and put in enough time and energy to complete it. Just make sure that you yourself is motivated to do the research. Okay, yes, during your research journey, there are possibly unforeseen problems. Sometimes it's not what we hope to get or what we hope to have, but it happened. So you have to be ready to whatever happen around you. Okay, second is the ethical issues. This has been discussed by Dr. Azim in his classes during class 2. Okay, so another important consideration in formulating a research problem is the ethical issues involved. Okay, in the course of conducting research study, the study population may be adversely affected by some of the questions, either directly or indirectly. So you have to make sure that you have truly examined, okay, all the population and how these ethical problems can be overcome at the problem formulation stage. Okay, so make sure that it is not embrace or harm participants. Okay, also your research problem must be researchable and solvable. So that's why you come out, okay, with the research question which need to be answered. Okay, so it can be investigated through the collection and analysis of data for those who are doing quantitative research study. Okay, so number 4 is the interesting or level of expertise. Okay, make sure that you have an adequate level of expertise for the task you are proposing. So allow for the fact that you will learn during the study and may receive help from your research supervisor and others, but remember that you need to do most of the work by yourself. Okay, you have to do it by yourself, because during Viva you will be asked, you are the one who going to answers. Even your supervisor is with you during the Viva, but supervisor cannot help you in answering the questions. So make sure that you know what you write in your research, and make sure that you clearly know that whatever written in your thesis is done by your own. Okay, so next is telling or relevance, meaning that select a topic that is of relevance to you as a researcher. Ensure that your study adds to the existing body of knowledge, bridges current gaps, or is useful in policy formulation. So this will help you to sustain interest in the study. Okay, and then next is the current. So it must be based on the current problems and also the availability of data. For those doing the quantitative research study, make sure you check the data is available, especially for those require you to use secondary data. Okay, make sure it is available online and it is free download. Okay, you can get it without any restrictions. Okay, so the formulation of research problem, there are 5 stages here. Okay, so the first one is the selection of a research areas. Okay, formulate of a research problem begins with selection of a broad research topic from personal experience, literature, previous research, and theories in which researcher is interested and his significance, okay, for his research area. So, for example, I would give a researcher gets an idea to conduct a study on the female feticide. Okay, so that will be the general topic or broad topic. So therefore, he or she initially begins with such broad research topic. So he or she will start to search, okay, for female feticides in Google Scholar or JSTOR, okay, anyway that you can find, okay, the research topic of female feticide. So from that, once you have the broad topic or you already finalize your research area, next you have to reviewing literature and theories. Okay, after getting a broad idea for research, you need to review the literature and theories that are related to your research area. So literature is reviewed to know what has already been done in the selected areas of research. Okay, so review of the theories, okay, or literature provides an opportunity for the researcher to plan a research problem to contribute towards either testing or development of theory or conceptual model. Okay. So next stage is delimiting the research topic. So in this step, researcher proceeds from a general area of interest to more specific topic of research to conduct a study. So for example, okay, as I give example before, which is the broad topic is female feticide. Okay, once he or she review the literature and theories, so he or she decide to conduct a study on female feticide. Okay, then he or she limits it to the specific research topic. Okay, for example, a study on perception of women about causes and prevention of female feticide in selected rural communities of district Masana, Gujarat. So he or she limit, okay, his topic or his research area only focusing on causes and prevention, and also which covers the rural communities in district Mehsana, Gujarat. So that's how from the broad topic, then you narrow it down. Okay. So next stage is evaluating the research problem. So once you is clear about the specific research problem, so next the research problem must be carefully evaluated for its significance, researchability and feasibility. Okay, so in terms of feasibility of the research problem should be evaluated for time, cost, availability of subjects and resources, administrative and peer support, ethical consideration and researchers' competence and interest. So all these restrictions you have to think it first also, okay, by evaluating the research problem, okay, how you can for how long can you how long that you needs, okay, to do your specific chapters or research, okay, what costs involved, okay, the availability of data, the questionnaire, when you want to distribute and everything. You have to make sure that this problem, your research problem, can be solved within the time constraint. And after establishing the significance, researchability and feasibility in evaluating the research problem, so then researcher finally formulates a final statement of a research problem. So again, this statement of research problem can be in declarative format, okay, which is stated in declarative statement, or else in the interrogative format, or we says in question form. Okay, so basically we do both, okay, statement of research, and then we end up our research problem section, okay, with research questions.